Oh, okay. So that worked great. That was perfect. Thank you, everybody. Miss Berlin, if you need to, if you need to see what that Candygram.
Hold on.
Made it a whole minute into the show.
Candygram. Oh, hey everybody. I'm Brian. Hey everybody. Hey, it's Miss Berlin's clone right there.
Right?
Hey, what's up?
Doesn't he look
I
cute
know.
in glasses?
I look cute in glasses too, I think. Maybe no, not so much. I've been compared to a young Tony Stark, but it is what it is. So I'm the only one who compares
James,
myself to Tony
everyone.
Stark.
Hey,
Hello.
James.
Hey, James.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
He's in the still like somewhat squeaky, somewhat deep voice stage.
Yeah, I had squeaks for about 20 years, and then I finally got this voice. So it is what it is. So
voice for radio.
Yeah, I have face for radio too. So
are you gonna like help us with any cybersecurity things?
I don't know.
What is like your favorite cybersecurity tip?
See, I don't work.
Just say use two-factor authentication.
No.
Hey, get out of here then.
Okay.
Analyze all your logs. Analyze logs stuff. He'll get there one day. So, hello everybody. I'm Brian. Miss Berlin, of course, is with us. Jay Wolf Goerlich is with us as well today, this week, for Breaking Down Broadcast, Breaking Down Security. I'd like to thank all of our followers and listeners for coming on with us tonight. Also, before we get started, I'd like to thank Pokaloo, Nick, Adam, Zero, Jinzo 20, Mix Panic, and of course beforehand Digital Warhead, of course, for his cheers and bits, and Clam Security for their bits before. But just want to thank everybody for following and supporting the broadcast here with your support, your word of mouth advertising, and everything. So, been a fun couple weeks. Miss Berlin hasn't been here for a little while because of RSA and travel and what have you. And I don't think we've ever had Jay on the show. Jay, you've never been on our show?
I don't think so. Maybe.
Okay.
But not that I can recall. At least not since the Twitch switch. So.
Yeah, definitely not since Twitch. So, thank you so much for taking the time and effort. You're muted, Miss Berlin.
It was probably really funny too.
It was hilarious. I said I've barely been on it since the Twitch switch.
Oh, that's okay. You're busy. You're doing a lot of stuff with like Red Siege, and you're doing some tabletop exercises with folks. So we appreciate when you can take the time to join us here. I do a lot more Twitch streaming than other folks, obviously, but it's I'm doing Hack the Box and things like that. So it's some fun times, but. Some announcements. We're going to be talking with Jay and Amanda about the RSA conference that just happened a couple weeks ago. It became, I don't know, a super spreader event in some cases, unfortunately. But it was well received. I think there was a lot of good talks that happened over there.
If we go by the numbers, 50% of the people on this call.
Jesus. Wait. 50% of 3 is like 2.2.
50% of the people that went to RSA.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, cool. Yeah.
Although I have a cough. I have a cough, but I definitely don't have COVID.
Okay.
So far.
Okay. How do you know?
I did a regular at-home test and a PCR test, and it's my only symptom. So I feel like it's either 1, psychosomatic, or 2, maybe allergies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Digital Warheads.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I was just saying. Digital Warhead said for his Father's Day, his wife bought him the Defensive Security Handbook. So you've got some more royalty checks coming through in the mail there for like 20, 30 cents.
$3 whole.
Oh my god. Um,
Woohoo.
so Jay, you said what was the atmosphere like? This was like the first RSA after the pandemic in person.
Yeah, so feel free to call me Wolfgang or Wolf, whichever
Wolf,
is
okay,
easier for you. We
okay.
don't need to go by the first letter, although we can. It's like J and Q. I mean, it sounds very Mystery
You could
Men
call me
or Men in
A.
Black.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like I could be
A
A
and J.
and B and
I'm,
J.
yeah, A and B and
Done.
J. Nice. I'm Berber. I'm actually alliterative
Berber.
twice, so it is what it is.
Love it, love it. No, it was nice to be back in person. The last time I was at RSA, I went to the Scotch and cigar party. So we're, having some scotch, having a cigar, great night. And I was talking to one of all of our friends, Aaron Lintile, and he's like, this is gonna end. This is, this is he was in one of his rants. I'm like, Aaron. He said, listen, this is a rare, magical moment in time. You got a good scotch. You got a good cigar. We're with friends. We're in San Francisco. It's February. It's like, one day this is all going to end. And he turned to me and said, Wolf, I'll tell you right now, it already has. And that was the last conference. That was like the last conversation at the last conference I had. And every time I see him, I'm like, this is your fault. You called this, and it's your fault.
It's a conspiracy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I blame Aaron.
Yep. Aaron, RSA, February 2020, and then that was pretty much it. There was lockdown right after. And as a matter of fact, there was a lot of folks who were like, maybe we shouldn't have RSA 2020 because of what was going on there. But yeah. Cool. All right. Jay, did you speak at RSA as well?
I did, B.
Jay.
I spoke. I did two talks. I talked on security design and the importance of really human-centric design principles and thinking about how people interact with the system, not only the adversaries but also the people we want to protect. Talked about that, and coincidentally enough, and ironically enough, considering I came down with COVID, talked about all the things we could learn about risk management from what happened in 2020 in a talk called Hindsight is 2020. So pulled out like all the different ways that people were responding to the pandemic, applied them to the NIST RMF, and then put on my mask and flew home and promptly tested positive. So
yeah,
great examples of flawed risk management, I suppose.
I was gonna say, so should I just not follow anything you talked about?
I mean, it's worked for you not to so far, so just keep going.
Well, so
Yeah.
one of the things I told my wife about the RSA being kind of somewhat of a spreader event was, and she raised the questions like, did you get it at RSA or did you get it on the plane rides to or from?
Right.
Because RSA may have been a
randomly
fairly safe event, but yeah,
like randomly in San Francisco.
right.
Well, so here's the thing. RSA was wrapped up 7 weeks of straight travel for me.
Oh,
the last 3 weeks were out of a suitcase and I never went back. And I was in San Francisco for several days before RSA. So I would say that of all the times on an airplane, if that was the one to get me, that would be a little bit odd. I mean, the numbers don't seem to work out.
Yep. Nope, that makes sense. That makes sense. Hey, Super Lolly, welcome. So Super Lolly lives on the other side of the world, so it's like Monday morning for him. So, yeah. So, you were talking about risk management. Maybe give people a synopsis. Were these talks recorded? Can they see these talks online, or is are they available?
So they were recorded. If you have a RSA badge or ticket, you can log in and see them. I don't know if they've been generally released yet, and I'm not sure RSA's approach to that. Okay. But so that's the answer to one. What was your answer to two? I'm sorry, it's late at night for me.
No, it's okay.
What was your other question?
Yeah, I was just asking if they were available. So yeah, if it may take a couple weeks, is what it sounds like. I don't have an RSA badge, so I'm not cool like that. I'll have to wait and check those out. But yeah.
Are you going to give the talks that you gave at RSA anywhere else?
I
there
am
you
going
go.
to probably give different versions of those. Yes, because so in both of the topics, the design one I've given various versions of for a year or two now. I've been on this mission to explore security design since keynoting Circle CityCon in 2019. So I mean, I've covered different aspects of it. This one was new aspects with affordances and metrics. But so yes, and on the risk management side, absolutely, people have it. What's just risk management in general is so frustrating to me because we started off talking tech, right? I think we all remember we got in this field and
Right.
we're like, go sit down with the executives. They should care about security. Let me tell you about my domain controllers and my patch levels. And everyone just like, I remember the CFO going, what's a domain controller? And so being the savvy social engineer hackers we are, we listened and they're like, oh, they keep talking about business risk. We should do risk. And we got into risk management and promptly made it just as technical and as opaque as tech and say, oh, by the way, here's my Monte Carlo simulation and I have determined data. And people just, so I do think there is an awful lot to the psychology of people, how they make decisions, how they accept risk or negotiate risk, right? How they view things. There's an awful lot to that just is overlooked when someone's like, oh yeah, follow the NIST RMF, or ISO has this ISMS process that you can follow for risk management. Like, yeah, that sounds great, but people don't ever work that way ever in just about any domain. But maybe they will for cyber, we keep thinking, but no. So yes, I would certainly be covering these areas in future events.
Okay. And Miss Berlin, you started off Monday morning like most everybody, in the world. They started on a panel of Kubernetes. No, I'm sorry, Zero Trust is the other thing that everybody doesn't really understand. That
The other thing
has a
that I
lot of,
also don't know about.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I don't either. That's why we had Jay Beal on Monday, because I was like, I have had several people on talking about Kubernetes, and I still don't understand why I would want to use it not at my own office. So, how did the Zero Trust panel go?
It was packed.
Really?
Nice.
Like 8:30 on a Monday morning. It was packed.
Interesting.
I was floored at the amount of people that were in there to listen to a panel about Zero Trust at 8:30 in the morning on a Monday.
Okay. And because it's a panel, 8:30 on a Monday morning, I'm sure all of the problems of Zero Trust were solved.
We fixed everything.
Everything is fixed. Okay,
Yes.
good. Oh, good.
Yep. All of us are out of jobs.
Damn it.
I apologize.
That's okay. I'm almost retired anyway, so it's all right. It's fine. Another 25 years and I'll be good.
It honestly went really, really well. It was a panel of 5 of us.
Mm-hmm.
Me being the only person that's not written a Zero Trust book. Right?
There's still time.
No, but funny thing, after you get put on a panel about Zero Trust at RSA, imagine the book offers that come in. They're like, please write a book about Zero Trust. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, they barely got me on a panel. I was proud to represent the skeptical portion of people that talk about Zero Trust sometimes. My favorite question from the moderator. So Jason Garbus, he actually wrote one of the books on Zero Trust, and I think we've had him on the podcast. Was, are we asking too much of people when we say you should implement Zero Trust? And my answer was yes. Because I think that if you look at the world in total, right? Like all of the people that have a network to be designed or a network to be secured, what percentage of those people do you think can even come close to starting down a Zero Trust path? And it's a very small percentage. Like, there are a huge amount of like SMBs that have one person that don't even know what their assets are. They don't know what applications are on their network. They don't know, like, they are just like putting out fires left and right, trying to do like whatever's right and make sure that they're not the next person, next like organization on the news. You can't
Right.
go to that person and be like, it's like a, you know, somebody in the 1% being like, why can't everybody bring themselves out of poverty? This is crap. Like, it's the same viewpoint. Like, you
Right.
cannot just expect people with that much tech debt and no resources to just be like, oh, I'm going to go down the zero trust path. So that was my.
It's funny you say that, Amanda. I'm working on a zero trust field guide right now. And so we did this meta-analysis, and there's like 5,000 people who are like, oh yeah, here's where we're at with zero trust, all this sort of stuff. I don't do data scientists, I just look at the facts. But it's like, what do people who have mature zero trust programs look like? They've got buy-in from their executive team. They've got support from their peers. They've got plenty of staff. They've got plenty of budget. I'm like, that's a cheat code. Like, if you have all that,
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
there's nothing that the security program probably isn't doing at that point, right? I mean,
Right.
well, I've got plenty of staff. Well, yeah,
That's a
okay.
mature security program.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a reason Google can make that work, and they were the lead people on that. Yeah. And Microsoft and all these other folks. It just seems like it's so nebulous as to what people really want from zero trust. Is it the authentication portion? Is it, defense or, offensive, defensive capabilities? What is it that they are expecting to get out of zero trust when they decide they want to implement it? Other than the fact that they can say, well, we have zero trust. Zero trust in what is, and that's one thing that I've always kind of really wondered about in terms of what's the ultimate goal for zero trust. Is it just to get rid of, infrastructure like firewalls and VPNs? Is it to rely less on, having IT, doing things, and everything's going to be, based in the cloud, and you're just going to have to just drop out a bunch of YubiKey tokens. I don't, and like you said, there's tech debt. So it's hard to overcome that tech debt to be able to put in new stuff that's going to introduce additional tech debt. And where does that fit in budget? And, I guess that's why they have consultancies that, like for zero trust implementations. And they just, I would imagine the best thing to do would be to start from scratch, build the zero trust infrastructure, and then put all your old shit into it, and then figure out what you can consolidate and get rid of. But I don't know. I'm not a zero trust consultant, so I wouldn't know what the best way is to implement that shit in the first place.
Me neither. I'm not a zero trust consultant, but based off, we had Chase Cunningham on there, and he does it all the time, right? We had, we had, Jerry. What's Jerry's last name? It's been a long couple weeks. But we had a couple really good people that do that all the time, either from a risk-based perspective or just like pure zero trust. And they actually recommended doing a portion. So like make these business critical servers or these functions zero trust first. And like, it's kind of like a walk before you crawl thing. It's kind of like, how do you implement two-factor auth or whatever, right? Like, you just don't do, like, turn it on everywhere. You have to MFA to everything you ever auth to. Like, that's crazy. But doing it like at a kind of strategic piece by piece thing, as opposed to, we need to be zero trust by the end of the year, 100%. Like, most people, I don't think will ever get to 100%, unless you're starting a company from scratch, maybe. But taking like old antiquated stuff that you may not even necessarily need zero trust, depending on who you're talking to from a risk perspective, like, do the important stuff first, and then kind of go down that journey of trying to get there. But you have to really plan that stuff out, and not just be like, we're going to be zero trust, and that's a very black and white view of how to do it, I think.
Yeah. It's a weird. Go ahead, Wolf.
I was going to say, I've been doing zero trust strategy and planning workshops for probably 3 years now, 3 years now, monthly. And yeah, everything you're saying, Amanda, is spot on, right? Take an incremental approach, fight your battles, know where it makes sense. A lot of these vendors and a lot of the white papers are like, oh, you will never succeed until you have 100%. Well, no security works that way. No, none.
Exactly.
None. No control we've ever put in place has been 100%.
Right. So Digital Warhead asked the question. I recently read an article on SecJuice. It said the Fed government switching to a zero trust model, and it's only a matter of time before businesses and corps follow suit. Thoughts? Yeah. And if so, what would a business with zero trust look like?
So yes, that's true. The executive order came out and then said everyone needs a plan. CISA has replied, and CISA has a maturity model. So actually, if you download from their website, you can get the CISA maturity model. I think it's in draft 1 right now, and it builds on NIST 800-207, which was finalized in 2020. So we have a common architecture. We have a maturity model people can follow. But for most businesses, frankly, it's going to be risk-based authentication with multi-factor. It's going to be network access control. I mean, it's going to be some of these fundamental controls we've talked about for a long time, just implemented in a way that's doing policy enforcement on an identity.
Right.
It was really interesting. So when I got asked to be on the panel, I'm like, all right, like I've heard all of like the snake oil stuff around zero trust. Like I really want to know, like currently, what do people think? And so I tweeted out like, what's the first thing that you think about when someone says zero trust? And almost everybody, other than like some really, really funny responses, were it is least privilege access with a marketing budget. Right. And which is sad because it's more than that. Like if you look into it, it's more than just least privilege as we know it from like a normal like networking and access perspective. It's if you take least privilege access with multi-factor and give it context. Right. Like you are doing some kind of context and automation around that authentication and access. Like that's supposed to be what zero trust is. It's not somebody getting getting an email or getting a piece of paper on their desk being like, oh, now I have to create this user and add them to these groups. And this person says that they have that access and they're done for forever.
Yep.
Right. That's like the normal model that a lot of people have. And that's not zero trust. That's least privilege access, depending on how you have set it up technically. But like zero trust is more than that. And sure, it has a marketing budget because there were like 30 to 40 talks that had the word zero trust in it at RSA, which I was I was just like amazed at. I don't know. Like I feel like people don't take it seriously because of all of the fluff around it.
Right. It's nebulous, right? I mean, there's so many different ways that people have suggested what zero trust is. I mean, if your management was to come in and go, hey, let's implement zero trust, you could give them something and they're like, no, I don't want that. I want this. Well, you didn't say you wanted this type of zero trust. It's almost like there's different flavors depending on what they want of it. So FS Montenegro, thank you, longtime friend of the show, as a matter of fact. He said context, but also continuous verification, in my honest opinion. And Digital Warhead said, while zero trust will increase security, could it potentially decrease productivity and cost and time of doing business? I don't know. I mean, thoughts from Wolf, Amanda?
Not if you do it right. So the thing is, to Amanda's point, we've been talking about trust boundaries for a long time. And oftentimes, for the sake of productivity, we've created very large trust boundaries, right? One network segment. I've segmented my network. Says every company ever until they send in the patent tested ROI segment means I've got different VLANs and I'm routing any anyways.
Right.
So effectively what we're talking about with zero trust is a very tight scoped trust boundary. Exactly what Fernando was saying, something continuous, something well defined. Now, this gets back to what I was talking about in my RSA talk, which is security design. If you first spend time with your business folks, whoever you're doing with this, your privileged admins, your DevOps team, your people in finance, whoever you're doing this with, your remote users, if you first spend time with them, you plot out what their workflow looks like, and you make sure that 99% of the time that they're following that workflow, we're getting out of the way because they're on a machine that we recognize, authenticating in a way we recognize. Why even ask again? You've already authenticated, save a token. Coming from a location, accessing apps, behaving in a behavior that indicates that I can trust you. Let's get the hell out of the way. Let's get the hell out of the way. Now, I say that, and anyone who was paying attention to what Amanda said in the beginning will automatically say, Wolf, that sounds great. When am I going to have time to sit down with my user population and do good security design when I'm trying to patch log4j and someone just told me that they provisioned a whole bunch of AWS servers and oh my God, no one told me about that. I thought we were in Azure.
Right. Or, we're both in AWS and Azure and we're only, half-assing it in either one of those and we're not, yeah. I mean, I've heard
there's a Ron Swanson security quote there. Yes,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, multi-cloud things are now a big deal. We've had several discussions in our Slack and on Discord about, yeah, we're in AWS, we're in Azure, and we're in GCP because we want failover or whatever. And I'm like, why? There's, they're all global networks. Just pick a different availability zone or whatever the hell Azure calls them or whatever GCP calls them, and go that way. You're adding needless complexity to these things, and you're not going to be able to, be as agile as you want to be, thinking, that you can just drop over to different clouds. But I don't know. That's what their management thinks. So yeah, it's up to them. So, yeah. So yeah. Thank y'all for the questions there. So what's the difference? Okay, so we've talked a little bit about authentication and authorization kind of things. How is that different from using like a federated login? Because I use right now my job, which is right over here, my workspace. It's right over here. So I'm at work. I'm not at work. I'm at work. I'm not. I can log in. I can gain access to everything I need through a federated login. So technically, if I don't have, my YubiKey token here, if I don't have my other little hard token thing, I don't get to work. That's how I get to work now. I don't even use VPN. So how is a federated login or zero trust, how are they different, or are they the same, or are they just, different sides of the same coin?
Do you want me to take that or you want to take that? All right. So here's the thing. When you're logging in, are you going through a policy engine that's determining the context and conditions of that request and requiring strong auth when it makes sense? If you are, really, that's the only question. Right. And at that point in time, the perimeter, now think about how we used to define perimeters, right? We used to define perimeters as a network firewall, and we're, IP level, TCP at UDP level, maybe application level, making a decision. Well, we can't wrap a firewall around every application. We can't wrap a firewall around every request when so much of it is using a federated ID to a SaaS application, probably from someone just like you, Brian, who's working from home in a location that we don't necessarily have control over. What we can do is move that access decision up to wherever we're authenticating. So now whenever I'm logging into these SaaS apps, I'm making sure to the best of my ability to check to make sure your device meets policy, you meet policy, all those sort of things. Now, one additional thing of that is, all right, in the old days, firewalls, crunchy and chewy, right? Crunchy exterior, chewy interior. We've effectively replaced that exact thing. If I'm only checking on a login that you are you, and probably only checking once as you SSL into 1,000 different applications, 1,200 is, I think, the current enterprise average. If I'm only checking on a login, I've effectively recreated that crunchy exterior because I'm not paying attention to anything you do within the app itself. So what happens if it really is you, but you have malicious intent and you log into one of your apps and start downloading a whole bunch of data or making a whole bunch of configuration changes you can't. Today, most solutions can't revoke trust during that point. So one of the things I'm really intrigued about is like the work by the Open ID Connect Foundation that's looking at shared signals. So one of my favorite examples of this is I log in with my federated identity. I log into my HR portal. I download a whole bunch of documents I shouldn't, probably for tax fraud. That trips the HR portal to say this is malicious behavior. That shared signal is made available to everything that I touch. And suddenly I can't get into Dropbox or Box or SharePoint or anywhere where I would go to upload files. That type of connection, which is really where I think Zero Trust is going, is fascinating to me. If we can get the apps not only to be the chewy component that we're logging into, but also to be effectively network security monitors, right, of behavior analytics that feeds back to that policy engine, some cool stuff becomes possible. Now, again, thinking about the security poverty line, thinking about reality, there's a lot of things that have to be in place for that. But it's really fascinating to me the direction in which this could head.
Yep. Yep. Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. It's complicated. I mean, and there's like we have talked about before, there's a lot of organizations that don't have the assets to do this. And bringing in a consultancy to do that does not help that budget line anymore. And okay, so I think it's hard enough just to set it up. What's care and feeding look like for this? I think Fernando mentioned it, continuous verification of these things. Is it any easier to maintain this over, traditional AD type services? What's care and feeding and maintenance look like on something like this?
So one of the main use cases still is to be to dump into your SIM. So your SOC is still going to be involved. Your help desk needs to be notified. I was having this conversation with an organization that had rolled it out, and it was pretty interesting. They basically logged into their firewalls with their MFA when they're in the office, and then that gave them a token that would determine what land they were in and what their trust boundary looked like. Pretty interesting. But when it went off the rails, the help desk was like, "Well, do you have Wi-Fi access?" And they start way up here, and it's like, yeah, but it wasn't Wi-Fi access. It was the fact that his AV was out of date, and therefore he was sitting in another VLAN, and therefore there is a lot of the troubleshooting components I don't think we've really thought through. So there is certainly going to be more work on the help desk to support these use cases if the tool, if the policy engine isn't providing any feedback to the users. Because why was I denied access? Who knows? Right? If I'm checking 100 different policy things. And think about this for a minute. All right, you're sitting there and you're like, all right, I need to deploy 100 policy things. What's going to break? And who's going to yell at me? How do I know? How do I de-risk that policy decision? That's another area that can be very, very difficult right now because there's not necessarily good policy modeling. A lot of these tools don't necessarily do monitoring, so I can't throw it in monitor mode and run in monitored mode for 6 weeks like we used to always do with DLP policy and VPN policy. So the early days of Zero Trust is where we're at, and there's a lot of these more interesting features that we're going to need to build out to really start making it supportable.
Early days?
I feel so.
Okay. I believe we had our first discussion with Zero Trust folks almost 5-6 years ago. So yeah, I mean, I want to say the dudes who wrote the O'Reilly books, we were on about 5 years ago. So I hope this doesn't.
I mean, as far as tech goes, that's still
right.
Still pretty early. I mean, because I don't know. I feel like a lot of people didn't even start looking at Zero Trust legitimately until, I mean, still 4 or 5 years ago is not that long.
Yeah, that's true. As long as it's not the IPv6 of technology where we're, 30 years from now and we're like, oh, we're still trying to get, half-assed.
We're still trying to get people to patch. So
Right.
Well, we're talking about authorization earlier, right? RBAC, we've been struggling with since 2004 was the ANSI standard.
Right.
So in my mind, we're still in early days in terms of products being rolled out
That
and
makes sense.
adoption.
Yeah. Yeah. When we can get a box that we'll just plug in and it, does all of it for us, then we'll know we've hit, peak zero trust, I think. But, then we'll just call it a domain controller and just call it good. So, we'll be back to the domain controller. Cool. Yeah. So, let me see. Any other questions from our friends? Thank you, Blood Knight 1, for coming on and joining us. Thank you to all the excellent comments. We were actually talking about RSA and then we got on to Zero Trust. Was there anything else, any other events? Cause RSA is one of those ones where it's like, it's almost like Vegas for me. It's like, is it too corporate to go to RSA? Can you still be a legitimate security person and, still go to RSA? It must have a huge ass vendor pit.
Yeah, I had it on my list of the conference that I never ever wanted to go to.
Until you got invited, and then you're all like, "Yeah."
No, I didn't even put in the CFP.
Uh-oh.
I was asked to be on a panel several years in a row. Like I was asked to be put on a panel.
Okay.
And another year, sure, or whatever. Like, go ahead and put me on. And then our marketing team wanted to put me in on a talk. I'm like, sure, if you want to write the CFP, go for it.
Right.
Like, I don't care. It won't get accepted.
Okay.
And then both of them did. I'm like, shit.
All right.
Now I have to go to RSA. It was surprisingly better than I thought it was going to be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't all fluff.
Okay. That's cool. That's good to know.
So, definitely a lot of it, but it wasn't all. It was really interesting. So like, I was really nervous. So this was my first time. Like I've given talks at dozens of other conferences that are like hacker infosec cons. This was the first one I gave a talk at that was corporate. And I was kind of nervous. And I did my best to make it so it was a very equal balance of something that a C-level would find interesting and something that like somebody that was fully hands-on technical would find interesting. And I think I did an okay job. I mean, it was a decent turnout. The coolest thing that I ran into was during the talk I gave, like one of the questions I asked the audience is, because this was like about about finishing moves. So like an attack that captures your entire ESC database or Active Directory, and now somebody's taking all of your creds and they're going to go crack them, right? So when that happens, you're screwed, and you need to either create a new forest or there's like this Microsoft network eviction process that you can go through. So I'm like, who here in the audience has gone through this Microsoft network eviction process or created a new forest in Active Directory? I'd love to hear about your stories. And 2 people actually raised their hands. I'm like, holy crap. Like I'd love, like, as a sysadmin previously, that seems super painful and I would never want to do that. Interesting, but still super painful. And I went up and talked to this guy afterward, or he came up to me and talked afterwards in the hallway. He's like, yeah, like, I was actually one of the 10 people that wrote the Microsoft network eviction process. I'm like, oh crap.
Nice.
That's great. Thanks for coming to my SysMonth talk. I hope you got something out of it. Yeah, it was interesting. There was more people there than I thought there was going to be as far as like technical perspective stuff.
Okay. Wolf, how about you? What did you get out of RSA that you were hoping to get or not get?
Yeah, so we already talked about what I was hoping not to get.
From failed. No, you got COVID.
Yeah. From are some conferences more corporate than others? Sure. But a lot of good people are there. A lot of my friends are there. So I love the networking. I love catching up with folks that I don't oftentimes see. I spent a lot of time with startups. So on Monday, when this panel that Amanda was talking about was going on, I had 20 meetings back to back, which was terribly planning on my part. I should have said no. or realize what I was getting myself into. The organizer's like, do you realize what you signed up for? Are you sure? And to this day, I always hear that as, of course I know what I'm doing. One of these days I'm going to recognize when the experts say, Wolf, do you really want to do that? That I will say no and I'll come to my senses. But that day was not the day. So I spent a lot of time with startups, spent a lot of time hearing about some of the new tech that's being built. It was a good time. Got to
Okay.
catch up with my full team in person, which never happens. I've been seeing everyone over Zoom in this window that we're on right now.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I was a little resistant to go to an on-site with my own company back in May, but like you said, or probably ended up finding out that there's still actually a need to have in-person physical discussions with people. It just helps facilitate communication better. So I I would hesitate going maybe now immediately right after everything's going on, but I definitely found value in what I was doing there. So for both of you, since both of you spoke, do you do you find that you make that you how do I say this? So when we go to conferences like Circle City Con and those kinds of conferences that are more what I would not call overly professional. They're InfoSec cons, but they're not RSA, they're not ISC squared, they're not OWASP kind of things with a larger governing body. Do you find that your talks get more traction, or you feel like you're doing more good by speaking at these conferences versus a Circle City Con or a Blue Team? And I'm not trying to disparage Circle City Con and those they're great conferences. I would go to Circle City Con if I could. I'll be in Europe at the time, but there's a different audience, right? So what do you feel like you get more out of giving the talks for folks that are going to be C-level leader types versus a normal InfoSec conference?
Being it was my first one, I have to say I've never had so many people take notes at a talk.
Notes. Okay. Yeah.
Like half of the audience were diligently writing down notes
Okay.
of what I was talking about, which was interesting. I don't know if it's like just this perceived like you paid a shit ton of money to get here, you might want to like get something out of it.
Okay.
Or what it was, but yeah, I've never had so many people just like crazy writing great questions at the end. I mean, my talk went for, I think it was like 38 out of the 40 minutes that I had. And they
Okay.
give you 10 minutes for questions. I used up all of it. And the same thing for the panel. Like there were just like a crazy amount of people writing down notes. Yeah, I don't know. It was it, but then again, like at a non corporate ish conference, you get more one-on-one time people in the hallway,
Right.
right? Because it's smaller and you can talk to people about just like whatever you want whenever. It's not just like you said, Wolf, like you're like meeting. Like me too. Like I was just running like, all right, like I have to go to this thing and I worked our booth. Like I've never worked a booth before. So I worked our booth and like answered a bunch of technical questions all day, like for our salespeople. And it was just like I think at a non corporate thing, you get more one-on-one time with people. So maybe they don't feel like they need to take notes.
Okay. All right. Did we lose? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I don't know that I find it's very difficult to value one event to the other.
Right.
So the RSA nature is certainly much more buttoned down, much more let's get to work, much more of a professional atmosphere. But I mean, so Circle City kind of can't wait because their theme this year is Saturday morning cartoons.
I saw that. Yeah.
And my whole talk is on security awareness training. I'm going to get the entire audience to sing the after these messages, right? And
Yeah.
then every one of my section headings is the opening credits from classic 1990s cartoons. That is going to be one of the most fun decks to create and give. I've already created some of it, but you know how the magic is creating the rest of it the day of. We all know that.
Right.
So, I mean, there is a degree of magic that happens at community events I don't think can be replicated.
Mm.
But certainly, you know, you want to have conversations at all levels so that when things need to get done, everyone in an organization is more or less aligned. And I think people who only speak at like a B-sides versus only speak at a Gartner event are missing out at really understanding the problem space from multiple perspectives and really getting their message out there. So to answer your question, Brian, I don't think it's one versus the other. I think the best way is to experience multiple different events.
Very cool. Yeah, and people go to obviously they go to conferences for different things. Some people like to go for LobbyCon and see friends. But I was like, let's say, obviously it sounded like there was a lot of startup work and you're working with some startups and stuff. So there was a different motivation for you to go to this conference versus, another conference, because obviously RSA is where people want to get seen. And, I was just thinking back to, RSA's had kind of a, where the keynote speaker is somebody who isn't even in security or something like that. And it's like, why are they even here? Well, I think they had the guy from Mr. Robot one year or something like that, but they had like some Hollywood star or an actor or something. And they were like, why is this person even here? It sounds like I need to go just to check it out. I shouldn't probably, be throwing stones on that particular house. Were y'all able to find a hotel room that didn't cost $500 a night? Really? Somebody had actually said they were. I had a friend of mine I used to work with said that he was in a $900 a night, and it wasn't even a good hotel room, in his opinion. So I was like, well, crap. I guess I could go, get an Airbnb in Sausalito or something like that, and Uber it in at $100 a time. But yeah. Well, okay. Well, I guess I'll have to bite the bullet and maybe see if my company will, do that. So, cool. Well, last thoughts on RSA before we go to the other topic and the other show that I wanted to have Wolf on. I think everybody should. I think everybody should go to RSA at least once. So I'll say that. I will say that at least once if they can swing it.
I'd go again.
Okay.
I wouldn't pay for it myself.
Agreed. Right.
Just because San Francisco's crazy expensive.
Right. Okay. Cool.
And I mean, I've went off and on for years, so yeah, I'm admittedly biased. I like San Francisco.
Okay. I don't hate San Francisco either. I've been up there a couple times. Yeah, I used to be stationed in Monterey. So
okay.
I got to go up Santa Cruz, San Jose, that whole area. I love middle California. I thought Carmel and that whole Big Sur, that whole area in the Central Coast is just amazing. So I hope besides Monterey is a thing. I would love to drive up from San Diego when I get down there. So, cool. All right. So, Wolf, the other reason we had you on was to you were talking about risk management, risk frameworks, and security awareness training. So, part of security awareness training is doing things like pulling up your LMS system, running Flash 5, pulling up videos that are in black and white and talking about how your Active Directory is awesome, and then clicking all the way through answering questions that a 5-year-old could answer, and you get 100% and you're done. Other things are like awareness training, like the new hotness is phishing tests and phishing exams. And we'll send out a cool email that tricks everybody into clicking on it. And so we've had discussions about security awareness training in the past here. We've actually discussed it in news articles and stuff. And they were talking about how, 70% of companies are spending their budget on security awareness training. and yet we still have phishing, we still have whaling, we still have vishing and smishing and all the ishings and breaches caused by that and ransomware. Um, you have discussions about security awareness. What is in your opinion, the issue that we have with security awareness training?
Oh, it's just we do it all wrong. I mean, look, here's the thing. One of my favorite studies about this was in 2020. They looked at the very best of security awareness training programs. And they found that less than 15% of the people changed their behavior afterwards.
Okay.
Less than 15% of the best programs. I recently got to hang out with some of the researchers at MSU, and I was like, hey, what's going on? Because I hear anecdotally that we do a phishing campaign, and then people's performance on recognizing fish actually goes down the very next time a fish comes through. What's going on? And they said, well, part of the problem is that so much of the awareness information we try to give people is outdated or wrong. Like, oh, it needs to have typos and needs to call you by the wrong name, and hover over the URL. And you effectively train someone to think if it doesn't show those indicators, it's not a fish. So if you look at some of the common good fish these days, it doesn't even match our security awareness training. And the researchers were doing this really interesting thing where they're like interrupting people. Hey, what do you think's going on? What do you think? After they did a fish test, and one of the people kept saying, no, I know this isn't a fish because it doesn't look like what they trained us. Like there's no typos. And so they just kept going on and on and on until they're transferring money, right? I mean, it's ridiculous things like that. The problem is that we try to make security everyone's business, which I think in theory sounds lovely, right? Safety is job one. While neglecting the fact that security is our job. and you're never going to be able to get people to know it as good as we do. And yet when you don't know it as good as we do, we then mock you and make comics about you and tell jokes about how terrible everybody is. So I mean, just in general, I think the entire way that we approach awareness and education needs to be rethought. And there's certainly some companies and some individuals who are doing that, but it's so frustrating to me to see it again and again and again be done wrong.
Yeah. Okay. My wife, who is getting her doctorate in adult learning and education, she said a lot of curriculum that is being built is built with the mindset that we're all still in high school and we're all still learning in specific ways like we did in high school, where it was like, you know, repetition, 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 when in fact at our advanced youth, we learn differently. And
Yeah.
she is one of her discussions on that, and she works in the LMS field currently, where she works is, how they are making training that is useful in this case. I know that I don't learn the same way that I used to learn because I don't have the time and effort to do that. And, a lot of the training that I have been given for security training, one, because I can just skip to the end normally and get an 80% on those things. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of training it is. It's like, if you have to sit and watch a video or, something that's more than, 20 minutes, I'm immediately checked out. I don't know if it's my brain or whatever it is, but I do not retain hardly anything, like you said. So what are our options here if, the limit of somebody's span of attention is, 25 minutes? I mean, the MTV generation, where our attention span is as good as a music video or something like that. So
The MTV generation. When was the last time music videos were on MTV?
I watch
I
I
was
want
in
my
high
80s.
school. I was in high school, probably.
Okay.
Middle school?
That's true. That's true.
Grade school.
It's been a while.
Been a while.
I'm old. God damn.
Well, and so this is another thing, right? Is that we're still teaching the same things that were happening when Amanda was in middle school. I mean, it's like Please don't use, the season or your kid's name as a password, right?
Right.
And how do we even measure that? Oftentimes, we're defaulting with security awareness to measuring it by doing some sort of phish campaign, which has got all sorts of other problems.
Right.
So, I think we've got plenty of examples of how to do it wrong. How to do it right, I think we've got very, very few.
Right. Right. So, with regards to phishing tests, we've got some links in our show notes that I'll be posting up in here. I was reading through the simulated research from Security Week, and they're saying I actually tried to find something that said phishing tests are good versus phishing tests are bad to try to balance things out here. But it said, like you said, simulated phishing tests make organizations less secure. A 15-month phishing experiment done in partnership with an unnamed publicly traded global company. Researchers at ETH Zurich found embedded training during simulated phishing exercises did not make employees more resilient to email lures and can have unexpected side effects that can make employees even more susceptible to phishing. It's rough. Overall, the study participants clicked on 6,680 out of 117,000 simulated phishes. That's not bad, 5%, like you said. But yeah, I mean, they said they found many repeated clickers who fell victim to multiple lures and concluded that many employees and organizations will eventually fall for phishing if continually exposed. It just, whatever, we've talked about this a lot too. It's like, all you need is the right carrot to phish somebody. I know that if somebody sends me a Kickstarter that has something that looks like a D&D module that I may have kickstarted on, I will click that fucking link every time because I am a Kickstarter freak and I support all that stuff. So if somebody sent me something even closely related to that, I would click on it. Please don't send me any emails with Kickstarter shit in it.
Someone
Go ahead.
Someone got me last summer.
Really?
It was actually surprisingly well done. Someone was trying to get into my Instagram account.
Okay.
And they recognized that MFA. So I saw the login prompt and I was like, oh, nice try, you dork. I defeated you with MFA, and I, beat my chest and went on my day. An hour later, I'm in a meeting, and mind you, in my head, I'm like, someone was trying to get into my Insta account because I keep seeing them hit the MFA.
Yeah.
I get an email from Instagram, the one whenever you switch computers, right? Was this you? It said, was this you? We just saw you log in from Yugoslavia on a Windows 7 computer with Internet Explorer.
Oh,
and needless to say, none of those three things match my use pattern. And it said, if this wasn't you, click this link. How quickly do you think I clicked that link?
Yeah.
Like, mash that link. But here's the thing. So in our environment, we're using DNS security in the CASB. So the minute I clicked that link, my DNS security popped up a message. My CASB popped up a message. And they're like, Wolf, you sweet summer child. That's a malware site. What are you doing? Bless your heart. Close that. Don't ever do that again. Right. And this is one of the things. Now, I'll tell you, I'm going to come back to where I've seen this done or heard this is done right. But this is a good example of we always expect people to do better. But if you look at multiple different industries, like when people first started flying planes, people went, wow, they're crashing planes. People must be stupid. Maybe the planes are going too fast. Maybe the human mind just can't keep up. And it took someone actually sitting down with the pilots going, oh, wait a minute. They can't reach the pedals and all the levers look the same. This is terrible design, right? We had the same thing in car manufacturing. We had the same thing in automotive safety for years and years. Why are people having so many car accidents? They asked circa 1920 to 1960. We always blame the people. And really, any good industry sits down, does good root cause analysis, and puts in place good controls.
Right. Yep. So I have worked at companies that have done the phishing exercises because for whatever reason, I don't know if this was the same kind of mentality where management didn't believe that phishing was an issue. So we had to go out and prove it. The same thing is like, well, we need a pen test to actually show that we're vulnerable because I've told them that we're vulnerable, but they don't believe me. So, we're using these things as an agent of change. In my older age here, I've gotten a little more pragmatic about building relationships within my organization. And, we're all supposed to be friendly and happy, and security is supposed to be the friendly, approachable company. And then it's like, let's send out something that is deceptive, and they make them hate us. And then they have to spend time not doing their work and doing email training instead. Should we continue to do these things? Because I did see some articles on here's how to do these things correctly. And I was like, I don't think we should be doing them at all, right? Or maybe we should be looking at different metrics than what we're expecting. Like we shouldn't be looking at things like click rate. We should be looking at who didn't click on it, who reported it, how many people reported it. I mean, what are some of the other metrics that we should be looking at in a positive light instead of, hey, you clicked on it, you get to take another 2 hours of, email security training?
I tell you, in my opinion, the information security industry will have arrived when the phishing simulation dies. I think the idea that, let's teach my kid not to get his lunch money robbed by waiting till he walks in the door, punching him in the gut, and stealing his lunch money is exactly what we're doing with a lot of these lures.
Right.
Now, on the metrics side, I'm going to throw it over to you and Amanda in just a minute, because one of the very first questions we had about security was your phishing program, because I thought you were doing something very intriguing. But Brian, one example, and this was given to me by Chris Merkel. So I was having a conversation about phishing companies need to die. We need to kill this industry. And I was getting very frustrated. And what he does, which I think is really interesting, is instead his phish simulations, instead of popping up training or shaming you or making you feel terrible, what his phish simulations do is very similar to what happened to me. If you get caught with one of his simulated phish, it pops up the exact same security message that you would get if it was a real phish. And he tracks in the back end, people report it. And then he does not track that down to the individual, he tracks it at the department level. And I like that for a variety of different reasons. The person doesn't feel that they're targeted. They don't feel the security company is out to get them. Their job's not in the line. And security isn't maintaining a hit list that's used by HR to dismiss somebody. All these things we've seen in a variety of different companies.
Okay. All right. So Ms. Berlin, tell us a little bit about your phishing work there.
It's been a while.
Back when she was in middle school.
Back when I was in middle school, we were phishing people in regards to music videos. What was your top 3 TRL votes?
Okay. I was poor and did not have MTV.
So, yeah. So no. So I ran a phishing thing at the hospital that I worked at, and we didn't do it per individual either. It was very immature because it was actually the first purple, red, whatever team type thing we ever did internally. We never had any user education when it came to anything but, I think maybe it was like how to change your password. Was like the only computer-based training type stuff we had in regards to tech stuff. And really we just started out with the high profile targets. So not necessarily department based, but more risk based. So if anybody had their email address that you could find publicly, those were our top targets. It was all I think it was fairly well done, as considering how immature of a program it was, just because we never faulted anybody, which was fairly common in the beginning.
Right.
We never we didn't fault them, we didn't shame them. It was all, hey, just this is how you report things, basically. Right. And us adding that kind of line of defense helped lessen the amount of time it took to detect things,
Right.
which was always a good metric. But
Okay.
yeah, I agree. Like tracking it down per user, I think is way too granular. That's like getting an alert every time a computer account gets locked out.
Right.
I think if you track it down to every time someone falls for a phishing attempt or does something that may enhance, like that's gonna wear you out real quick.
Right. I actually got told a story by somebody. Their organization did the phishing exercise. Um, they penalized the people who clicked on it, but they also penalized the people who didn't report it, because it was like you
What?
viewed they were they said, well, the preview pane opened up the email, so obviously they looked at the fish, and if they didn't report it, then that was a problem. And I had to ask them, it's like, do you hate your users? What is your relationship with the enterprise and your people? And they said, oh, we're great. And I was like, have you really asked people what their opinion of you is? Because you saying that they're great and then you go and do shit like this does not bode well for your relationship with the organization.
Yeah.
Um yeah, yeah, it bothers me there. And so, Ms. Berlin, your IR stuff, and Wolf, I'll come back to you in a second here about. So instead of doing phishing campaigns, could we not just say, okay, Bill Bill clicked on a link. What does that mean to us? Incident response tabletop, the scenario is Bill has clicked on a link. What does Bill have access to? What's the damage for Bill if he got hit with this and it just happened to be ransomware, and it's, let's say he got hit by Emotet. Is that a better way of doing this, where we can get rid of the phishing exercises altogether? Or, I mean, what is the impetus for management to feel like they need these phishing tests? Is it RSA that caused the phishing tests, the rise of our phishing tests, or what caused that?
If you just replace all phishing tests with zero trust,
Oh, wow.
then
Bingo.
we'll be fine. Done.
Go ahead.
I fixed
Go,
it.
go ahead, Wolf. Go ahead, Wolf. Go ahead. Oh no. First and last time he'll be on our show.
And go.
Yep.
This is our debate now. Like
That hurts. That hurts.
Oh shit. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, so what's interesting about this, though, think about this for just a minute. This is another flaw in the security industry. The security industry has several like fatal flaws. One of them is we always blame the people. Another fatal flaw is we think whenever we put a control in place, that's it. Like, I will deploy this control, and the adversaries will be like, I had no idea he would have tool X. You know what? I'm reconsidering all my life choices. I'm not going to write any more spam. I'm going to go straight. And they log off the internet, and they're no longer a cyber criminal, right? And arguably, flaw 3 is our habit of putting cyber in front of everything. But back to flaw 2. Whenever we put in place a control and the control reaches a certain level of efficacy, people automatically work right around it, right immediately around it. So if we could wave a magic wand, Chase Cunningham's magic wand, and all of a sudden 100% of the enterprises in the Fortune 1000 have zero trust, and everyone at the security poverty line are given more people and more money, and they're working on this problem. Well, what happened is almost immediately adversaries would work around zero trust. We're seeing this right now with multi-factor, right? When not many people are running multi-factor was hugely effective. Now that more people are, it's starting to be worked around. We will also start to see this with passwordless, because passwordless is phish resistant. And what that means by being phish resistant is it will not provide the credential. It will not provide the credential to a bad link, right? It will do some link checking and everything for you. No matter how much you want to click on that link and give a credential, it won't. What will happen is, and we're already starting to see signs of this, I've been predicting this for 2 years. What will happen is we're going to see a rise of OAuth and OIDC phishing, where it'll be a completely valid link and it'll say, hey, please click on this. And you'll click on it, and now the adversary will, through a trust chain, through federated identity, have access into an environment. Every time we put in place a control, an adversary works around it. Now, what that means is, will zero trust solve it? No, of course not. But would strong authentication mitigate it? Yes, of course. Are there certain things we can do? Absolutely. I think bottom line is we need to spend more time looking at how the adversaries work in, spend more time thinking about what will happen after we put in place the control, and spend less time trying to get normal people, our friends and colleagues in the company, to do our jobs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That, I mean, yeah, we waste a lot of time, you know, and I honestly think that the phishing frameworks, we don't get a lot of benefit out of it, other than it makes us look good because we use these vanity metrics to show that we're actually kind of doing something.
Look at all we did.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, we managed to deceive, a third of our company by threatening them with their insurance benefits or whatever, that kind of thing. Yeah, the last
if you doing all of that work does not do anything to decrease time to detection, like it's worthless.
Yeah, no, that makes 100% truth. Yeah, I mean, the problem is we have security people suggesting this to management, which means the security people aren't getting it. And management thinks it's a great idea because, metrics, and if the security people think we need it, then we need to have it. And we need to probably to move that around. The phishing training, and the reason we had Wolf on also because of his post on Twitter. I'd seen Alyssa Miller mention how you can set specific rules in your email inbox to filter like know before kind of phishing tests, or certain companies that advertise their phishing tests where you just put something in your Outlook and it'll automatically delete that, and then you never get it in the first place. But what's this? YTT says, I send none. I teach the things that make me suspicious, and I'll mitigate it as soon as possible. Oh, yeah. Excellent, YTT. Digital Warhead says, I agree. My company only sends phishing attempts and no educational follow-up or cybersecurity articles in their daily mailer. It's just like they keep casting into a pond of goldfish and keep picking them off with no learning. Oh, yeah. Yep.
So I've been collecting a series of tips on people who either are not phishing or are phishing uniquely. I mentioned Chris Merkel and his example of every fish is anonymous and it looks just like a regular fish, right? So if anyone is like, hey, I am not phishing, I'm collecting other evidence this way, or I'm doing awareness training that way, I would love to hear about it. I am meeting with researchers on this topic, getting into it, because we're coming up on 30 years, believe it or not. We're coming up on 30 years of fish. And and I would like to see that the simulation end. And I would like to see us get better. So for people who do have some great ideas, please let us know.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. We could definitely replace phishing exercise, phishing engagements like this with, so we're not allowed as the blue team or the security people internally to do phishing exercises. Should we continue to allow security assessors to use those as an in? Because, you hear stories about pen testing firms are like, oh, well, I spent 2 weeks trying to get in, via this way, but I just decided in the end to send a fish, and oh yeah, somebody clicked on it and I'm in. Should we still allow those as a, part of the scope for engagements, or should we just make those off limits like DDoS testing?
Why are we testing what we know? Yes, if you send my people a fish, you will get in. Also, I think that can still backfire. So Ian Meyer is another person I've talked to, and he's got a great series of talks on ethical fisheries. And when I was talking with Ian, I told him the story. I'll tell you guys that we were trying to get in. I was doing the advisory and program development. My red team was testing our work. So I'm meeting with the CISO. I'm meeting with his director, and I'm asking some questions. And all of a sudden, both of their phones start blowing up. And the CISO steps out. He says, "I'll be right back." And then I'm just talking with the director. And the director is like, "Oh my God, I gotta go too." And then I'm all alone. Like, what is going on? So later on in the day, I found out what had happened. We had sent a fish from HR. The CEO had remembered vaguely HR talking about doing some surveys and put together the CEO's email. And he included that fish in his email and said, "We really care about everyone. Everyone should, reply to this right away," and sent it out company wide. So our pretext got sent out, and I think our click rate was like 90%, right? Because like everyone, if the CEO says do it, do it.
Right.
Now
Right.
you may say, let's take the red team perspective. Oh, that was a great test. We showed them we got in. Let's take the security team's perspective. Do you think that that CEO was on board after being tricked to bring in another security consultant
No.
or to do anything like that again? No.
Yeah.
No. The damage that did to the relationships at the executive level, incalculable. But our red team was certainly happy.
Yeah. Well,
We know these things will work.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Let me see. I was trying to find some stuff out here. Okay. I think that's pretty much all we've got here. So what are some, okay, so phishing is out. You don't like phishing. You want to get rid of phishing altogether, phishing tests in this case. Wolf, what other things from a training point of view would you like to get rid of?
We have 9 minutes.
Well, I mean, we could go a little longer if you'd like, if you want to be loquacious about it. We're not beholden to the 2-hour mark.
You're not going to have more children come through this door.
I hear you. I hear you. All right.
Yes.
Let's pick the top one.
That is a long list.
What's the top?
I think just the top. Well, I think just in general, anytime we're trying to tell people to just stop and think, we're really doing the wrong thing. If you look at like system 1, system 2 thinking, right? Thinking fast and slow.
Yep.
What do people prefer? They spend most of their time thinking fast. As a matter of fact, I think the ratio is 9 to 1. Right, out of 10 activities, you want 9 of them just to be automatic. Yeah, we're going to be the security team that said, no, every 10 times you need to stop and think through everything you're doing. What kind of advice is that? I really think we need to look at wherever people are having trouble completing those controls. And instead of going, wow, we just need to give them more awareness training and let them know, maybe if we just had better data and better colors and maybe not a black and white video, but something with music, something catchy from the 90s. That'll maybe we just need to pause and go, wow, what is it in our design, in our understanding of the organization, our implementation of security technology that's just lacking? What are we missing?
Right.
And take that approach.
Yep. So does in-house created training, is it better, or is there still a market for, Joe Bob Billy's, security training companies videos?
So I was talking with the CISO, and he said something that really struck home to me. He's like, do you try and do organizational change? But yeah, absolutely. Do you try to like lead change efforts and change culture? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, I love culture change. I love culture frameworks. Like, so do you have a degree in organizational psych? I'm like, no, I do not. He's like, well, I do, and I don't do it. Do you know why? I'm like, no clue. He goes, because my degree was 20 years ago, and I'm a technologist. Why in technology are we so convinced that we can educate people? Brian, you mentioned your wife is going through a doctorate on this. Why are we so convinced that we can educate people better, right? That we can lead culture better? We do all these things in part because we got into technology and no one else knew it, and we did. So we oftentimes think, well, I don't know that other thing, so how hard can it be? There was a tweet walking around that really captured, I think, a lot of our attitude. And it was this little girl, and she's like, I want to be an astronaut. And her mom's like, well, you'd have to, go to college and get a doctorate, and you'd have to go physical training, and you'd have to apply to NASA, and you'd have to get accepted in the program, and you'd have to do their thing. And the little girl thought for a minute. She goes, okay, that's 5 things. I think I can do 5 things. And that's our
Nice.
answer. It's just 5 things, right?
Nice.
I honestly think, and I would love to talk to your wife. Honestly, this is where I'm at the moment, Brian. But I honestly think we need to reach out to people who have these expertise and leverage them and stop
Right.
thinking we have the solution for it all.
That's cool. Yeah, she actually went to a training or an educational conference on this on talking about adult learners and stuff, and I was like, wow, that would be a conference that I'd like to go to talk about education stuff because yeah, there's definitely some room for us folks trying to either create content kind of like this. I don't imagine that people are actually using our shit for internal stuff. Sorry if for internal people there, but yeah, it would be interesting to talk to those folks. And I've actually been trying to get my wife on the show here, but she has super imposter syndrome. So she's still working on her dissertation parts and trying to get that stuff done. But I will have her on at some point in the future, talking about it, training and stuff. And I'll send along your information and see what you two can talk about on that. So
Yeah, I love
okay.
that.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So I know that it's getting late for the folks on the East Coast, Miss Berlin, and like you said, she's yelling at kids behind her, very mom-like, trying not to let people know, get your ass in bed, get your ass in bed now, or something like that. But
I want a hug. I don't want to brush my teeth first.
it's okay, Mom. It's okay, Mom. You're doing great. You're doing great. But so I think we should end the show here. We can definitely have Wolf back on at some point in the future. I hope if he's amenable to that.
No,
Wolf,
this
how?
is it.
Oh,
You
really?
know?
Oh,
Yeah, took this long. Not.
okay.
Wow.
Well,
Harsh.
it is Berlining down security here.
It
so
is.
Berlining,
Yes,
not breaking down. It's Berlining down security. Yeah.
No,
So,
we're just gonna switch you out. Wolf, you're up. Brian.
Oh,
Yes.
Womp
Then
Exits.
I can call him B.
that's right.
Yes.
That's right. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I'm going to let everybody go. Wolf, how would people find you if they wanted to talk more about fishing exercises or non-fishing exercises or what have you, or just security in general? How would they find you?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I'm at
Sure.
JW Goerlich on Twitter. My website is jwgoerlich.com. I can throw that in chat if you want.
Okay.
And I'm coming to a security conference near you, probably.
Very nice. Okay. Very good. Ms. Berlin, how would people find you if you're online?
At InfoSister on Twitter, INFOSYSTIR. The next place I will be, I believe, is DEF CON.
Oh, nice. Okay. Y'all doing workshops or
think.
anything there?
Is DEF CON first or is Blue Team Con first?
DEF CON
Blue
is.
Team is first.
No,
Is
Blue
it?
Team Con is the same weekend as InfoSec Camp Out.
And it's after
August
DEF CON.
26th. Yeah. And it's after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Then I will be at DEF CON next, which
Okay.
we will have for Mental Health Hackers. We're not catering. We are making our own because catering's really freaking expensive in Vegas. We're doing brunch. So watch our Twitter account. On Saturday, we have a suite at Caesars, and we're going to be doing brunch and a full talk track and a whole bunch of mental health related things in a room.
Nice.
So yeah, it turns out when you ask Caesars, one, they won't let you bring any external catering companies in. You have to use Caesars.
Of course.
Guess how much it is for a continental brunch, which is fruit, coffee, and tea per person.
Oh. $50 ahead.
Ooh, close. 45.
45. Yes.
$45 for fruit, coffee, and tea.
I was $5 over.
Oh, because we're not a catering company, we're just gonna do it ourselves, and we're gonna go to Costco
There you go. Muffins.
and buy a bunch of hot plates and make pancakes and make French toast and make a whole bunch of stuff and just wing it. So
Right on.
that's like we're making
Nice.
Megan's family has a condo out there, so she's gonna bake a whole bunch of like fresh baked stuff. Yeah, and we could probably fly people out to cook for cheaper than it would be
Yeah.
for oranges and coffee.
I can come out and make Pop-Tarts. I can do that. I can do that
Oh.
for you.
Pop-Tarts is a great idea.
Yeah, shit. Wolf, more than one person has asked in our chat about you joining our Discord or Slack. So I've put in the Zoom chat the invite to our Discord and or our Slack if you want to do it. No pressure.
Oh, thank you.
So feel free to join us on there. We have a code of conduct on both of them. So, abide by it or I'll kick your ass out myself. Mr. Betcher is on vacation. He's in Orlando seeing the sights. Hopefully he'll be back very shortly. He is at Betcher Pwned on Twitter, BOETTCHERPWNED. He also is the lead developer for Log-MD, Windows forensic tool to get your Windows logs right in your Windows machines. Also does, I believe, timelining. It's a freemium model, so there's a free version and then a paid version if you want to go check that out. Log-MD.com. You can follow the podcast and the broadcast at Breaksec on Twitter, BRAKESEC. You can follow me on Twitter, Brian Break, BRYANBRAKE. And if you are wanting to join our Discord, check that out, discord.gg/Breaksec. I'm also on Mastodon. Miss Berlin's also on Mastodon as well. Same handles, Brian Break and InfoSister. Yeah, I follow you on Mastodon, Miss Berlin.
I've not been on Mastodon in
forever. Okay.
4 years.
Okay.
I used it when it first became a thing, and like, this is lame, and I left.
Yeah, I have tried it, and
I'm also on Google Wave.
What? So am I, or was. I'm on Google Plus. You can find me on Google Plus at. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but yeah, we're all over the place. I'd like to thank Linux Parrot for all of the bugs that he sent us. Thank you for helping us out with that. For all of you new listeners here, you can get 175 hours of Twitch streaming by subscribing. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can give us a free subscription, which will give you access to all of those things, including 2 to 3 times a week I get on and I just do some hack the box stuff to play around with SQL Map and to get my SysP credits. So, oh yes, YTT says she's on AOL chat. My AOL chat was TSRAGRWX, which I was in the Navy as a weather person. So TSRAGR was like thunderstorms with hailstones or whatever, but that was my handle on AOL. Cool. Yeah. So, one last thing before we go, I want to show this. This is something that is like just happened today. So you're going to get to see our show notes. I'm going to drop this over the top here. Our logos for InfoSec Campout, done by Shell Domko, who did the art for Ms. Berlin last year. Took her logos and turned them into InfoSec Campout 2021. We asked her to do some logos for us this year, and these are the logos that we're going to have for our conference. To be honest, I had suggested a bit more of a macabre scene with the bears where there was maybe some dead humans around. But I decided maybe to tone it down a little bit. So this is the design for the shirt. And she said, hey, I created a special bear specifically for things like stickers. And I was like, wow, that's freaking amazing. Thank you so much for that. So these are going to be what we're going to be putting in our store. And you'll be able, if you're a ticket holder or bought a ticket already, you will be able to get a discount, a code for a t-shirt and any other paraphernalia up to a certain amount from the store. What's that, Miss Berlin?
Sorry, I thought I was on mute.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, we're a live show, y'all. So yeah, if you're not able to come to the conference and you still want to get one of these t-shirts or stickers or what have you, we'll be releasing the link to that store. I would also like to say, if you go to infoseccampout.com, you can also buy tickets if you want to join us, infoseccampout.com. And yeah, we are, we're still looking for speakers. And it is, of course, yes, the same weekend as Blue Team Con, but oh crap. Okay. Oh, I spelled InfoSec Camp out wrong. Extra O there. So, but if you are interested in joining us, we have a social contract, a code of conduct. We're a backyard camping conference. So come and join us if you'd like. We will be updating the t-shirt link to the merchant store, and our CFP link is always available here. So we are going to be making sure that we're transparent about our speakers. We are also taking steps to make sure that all of our speakers are above board, and there will be no special guests. Just to let everybody know. Cool. All right. Well, that was it for this week on Breaking Down Security. Thank you again, Wolf, for coming. Appreciate you taking the time and to do so. Ms. Berlin, pleasure as always. Glad you could be here with us and you're safe. And yeah, take care. Take care of yourselves because you're the only you have. And we'll talk again soon. Bye, y'all.
Yep. See everybody.
Thanks so much.